afternoon, it's 4:30, our Thursday, December 12th, 2024 meeting will commence. It's a special council meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the roll call will show that all council members are here except for J.J. Schreck. We have one resolution to deal with this evening and regarding the offer to buy real estate and acceptance, non-residential. And Aaron.
After our discussion with Pete Simons, we came to a somewhat of an agreement for price, which ended up being for 80.5068 acres for the price of $2,414,075. That is just shy of $30,000 an acre. The other 34 or 30 to 34 acres, depending on where we look, as far as the assessor's page or get figured out, will be obligated to buy after this proposal is taken care of. But tonight we're talking about a purchase agreement to purchase the 80 acres that is in the trade that he's working on.
All right. Any discussion from council?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I got emailed a couple questions. So, look, total cost at $3.4 million.
After the next 30 acres, the price of that ground will be somewhere around, it'll be another $1 million-ish.
Another $1 million. What is our plan for infrastructure?
The plan for the infrastructure will work with the developers that we've been working with, talking to see what that will be the next step to develop that property.
And so we don't have like a normal transaction between developer and city, just like we talked about. Everybody's doing this, so there should be an average of like what, or the current developer that we're talking to, we don't know what exactly they want.
Not at this time, no.
Okay. How much do we think that this infrastructure is going to cost?
I would have to get the engineers involved to give me an estimate, or preferably a closer than an estimate.
But I see we're talking in the tens of millions of dollars, not the millions of dollars. And I base it solely off the 4 acres of land that we removed the lift station. That was at $1 million for 25. So we're talking about tens of thousands. Maybe it probably won't be 25 million, but we're talking about tens of thousands versus or tens of millions versus millions to get this infrastructure in.
I can't give you a good answer. I wouldn't think it would be tens of millions of dollars, but I don't know.
You think it'd be less than tens of millions of dollars?
I think that's a high number, yes.
Oh, okay. And where'd you come up with that based off like my math, I guess? Where does that number, it's not tens. I just did basic monkey math on that, you know what I mean? On that 4 acres, like I guess what is the average of infrastructure like cost? As we're buying this land, we should, you know what I mean?
I don't have a good answer to give you on.
Okay.
I just think that sounds high to me.
Okay. And what is the timeline for this thing to start building on this?
Well, the next step would be to negotiate with developers, to work with them. One of the developers I've had in contact wants to work with us to get the Thriving Communities designation so that they can get more tax credits from the state to help build those properties. So that would be a Thriving Communities application is due in June, which then you don't get a designation until early September, which then those tax credits wouldn't be applied to or given until the next year. So 2026 would be the next, probably the earliest of the building years.
Okay, and then all the money is going to come from local option sales tax?
We'll make a borrow for it, but yeah, it will be paid through local option sales tax, yes.
So I want to add on a question. What would your ideal transaction be with a developer? How would this go? or I guess that's open to council, how would their ideal transaction with the developer go to not necessarily get a complete ROI, but some type of ROI within some reasonable time, meaning we'll go to 10 years. Even though I like them at 7, I would like it, I'll give you the extra 10 years, because
So Jason,
we're going very long.
I think when you're looking at this with a developer, you ask them for proposal, see what they're asking for. Everything is going to be incentive based, just like what you did across the road. It's incentive based. Things do not happen unless there's incentives. With the Iowa State study that we went through, there was pages upon pages talking about affordability, lot prices, incentives, the city being involved. This isn't from any of us. This is from people out in the community.
I understand that, but I'll go off the proposals that we've gotten so far. Nobody has said any type of infrastructure on the 2 that we have. So what would you like, what would you think that, I understand that you guys feel that there's a problem and we need 50 more houses. I personally don't see the problem. I think that Carroll's doing fine. We have 20 some odd houses on the market. And so all I'm basing it off is the 2 ROIs that we got. Neither of them anywhere said anything about infrastructure. So it leads me to believe that, wow, guess who's on the hook for infrastructure? Me, to make these affordable. And so that's what I don't know. And you're shaking your head, and I'm just trying to get somewhat of a feel of what, as council, we would like to see before we spend $3.4 million. What would be a good solution for the infrastructure?
Jason, what I'm thinking, and I couldn't attend the Western Iowa Advantage conference that was several months ago, but a lot of cities are having the purchaser, the developer, puts in the infrastructure because they can oftentimes do it a lot cheaper. This is the model we used with Rolling Hills South and Western Iowa Advantage, and then realizing how we worked with Rolling Hills South developer. What we could do is what I'm thinking, and again, we aren't that far into the process, is the developer can put in the infrastructure and then we repay the developer with TIF money. That is a model I like because of the lower potential cost. The developer can get it done, they've done it before, we're not in that business. And then it alleviates a lot of the city's risk.
Yes,
I like that, and
I do. What happens if we cannot find a developer to do that?
Well, it's happening all over according to the Western Iowa Advantage report that I picked up later from Chris Whitaker.
So is that
That's
so
a
again, I'll go
model.
back to the original question. Is that the normal transaction that's going on throughout?
According to the information I read in the packet of materials, that is very prevalent among cities that are acquiring land and then a developer takes over the infrastructure.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate your guys' point of view. Obviously, I think I'm the lone wolf up here that does not, I think that this is way too big. I don't think that the government should be infringing on the free market. I think that it's somewhat of an overstep on our part. I believe that if a developer came, and by no means, I don't want anyone to think that I'm not against developer, is if the developer came to us and said, I need 10 acres of land and I want to do this, I'd be more than happy to help them. I think that just buying $3.4 million of land on a whole lot of questions that are very loose, that instead of an asset, this becomes a liability. And that's where we're sitting at. And as far as reselling the land, we're never going to be able to resell the land at any type that we will, of $30,000, over twice the value of it. As far as we talked about them farming it, there's a reason why farmers don't buy $30,000 worth, $30,000 acres. Maybe one day we'll have $25 corn and it'll make sense. I just don't foresee that happening.
Jason, I
So
think
that's
you,
where
I think
I'm
you
at.
forget about the tax base that it creates too.
I'm
That
not
tax base,
forgetting about
that
Yeah,
tax
I'm
base is going to be here for the next 100 years.
not. Okay, yeah.
And even if you looked at it on an 8-year payback, on some of the recent homes that were built in Northridge Edition, $324,000 valuation. The city's portion over 8 years is $14,000.
So we'll be paid back in 8 years on this.
That's one lot that I'm saying. That's 14 grand. We're giving almost a $20,000 housing incentive right now.
But now we're gonna have to deal with a $20,000 housing incentive, or we're not. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to put $50,000 an acre in infrastructure to give them or for them to buy the property, you know what I mean? We can give them the land, but we gotta pay for the infrastructure, so now the lot's $50,000 instead of $20,000. I mean, so we can play that, and we can play that at $16,000, it's $16,000 per lot. If it's dirt, that's dirt, that's no infrastructure put in or anything else like that.
That's what we did with 704,
Oh, did we?
didn't we?
No, I don't.
we're giving them a rebate on the infrastructure that they put in.
Okay. All right.
They put the infrastructure in, but then we're tiffing his ground so that they, to pay him back for the
The infrastructure
infrastructure.
on his land, yes.
Yeah. yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I said my piece,
We can
I
sell it,
appreciate
you know, we can sell this land too, to the developers.
Okay, for 30 grand?
When you
Well,
break,
so much a lot, yeah, it's like $16,000 a lot.
With infrastructure that we put in, so then we have to put in the infrastructure.
That's what we did down south.
That's also what we did over at Farner. But anyway, let's continue on.
Any other questions? No? No, all right.
Does the public get to, I assume that they're here for, or they,
If somebody wants to make an address to it, that's fine. Go ahead.
Assume that they're
State your
here.
name.
of course.
You knew I'd get here. I mean, I've emailed all of you before, you know my feelings on it. I know you're gonna limit my time. I'd love to have dialogue. You know, there's a couple of things that have been brought up here yesterday, tonight. I've got a couple of points to make, but, you know, to your point, Kyle, all that tax base is worth something unless you tip it. You agree?
I get that, yeah.
Yeah, so then that goes out the window. You mentioned TIF earlier, so we know that's on the table, so let's refute that. The other thing is, you know, what you're doing with Matt is entirely different than this. I told you before, this is the best template moving forward. He's in agreement with that as well. Matt's still building Carroll. And that serves as a template because the taxpayers aren't on the hook for anything. It only gets rebated back to him as development occurs. I told you before, this is the gold standard moving forward. The consequences of this will be irreversible if they don't go as planned. There is no plan, none. I would love to be a part of hearing what your plan is, but you're moving forward on a $3.5 million purchase with no plan, none. I mean, you can't disagree with that. There's no plan as far as what the development's going to go. The other thing is this is obviously gonna be catastrophic to the taxpayers. We're the ones footing the bill. We've never been asked to do this before. Carroll hasn't been asked to do this before. Carroll has become Carroll without this before. And to believe that it isn't going to occur is putting very high doubt on the people that have built Carroll. That it can't continue to move forward without government intervention. So I asked what the plan is. I found out earlier how it's gonna be funded by local option sales tax, which we already know. We've got a $19 million, $500,000 hook on at the rec center. We've got $100,000 a year catalyst grant opportunity. We've got how many $100,000 worth of facades attached to that already. So now the $3.5 million, if we're gonna bond it at 4, maybe 5%, goes well beyond that. And local option sales tax cannot be continued to be asked and asked and asked and still have opportunities for economic development as its intent rightfully should be. The taxpayers will not be made whole on this. There is no estimate from anybody where the taxpayer will be made whole on this. I think taxpayers would agree. I think it makes sense if things do remain on the tax base, builds our taxable value, unless it's not tipped. But what is the return on investment, I think is what Jason said. Finally, I'd like to know what the rush is, and this is a question that I want answered. What is the rush to do this tonight? It looks pretty shady. I'm saying it. I'm saying, we did it on a Thursday night, we did it on an off time. Hopefully, no one would show up, no one would read the paper. We've had closed sessions up to this. I understand the purpose for closed sessions, but now that it's become public, there's been no media presentation about it whatsoever. A good share of the city doesn't even know about it. A lot do by now. But what is the rush to do it tonight? I understand there's maybe something on the hook on land exchange that I would like to have explained if that's the case. JJ's not here. JJ's not able to be here. She had some kind of conflict. You sprung the meeting on her to not be able to plan for it. I don't know how she's going to vote. I don't know how all of you are going to vote. I think your minds are made up, other than Jason's. But shouldn't she have an opportunity to vote on a $3.5 million expenditure and then be accountable to the citizens? So what is the rush for tonight, sir?
That what you wanna know?
Yeah, what is the rush for tonight? You've got first opportunity, first right of refusal. I don't think he's got people standing in line giving him $30,000 an acre. What is the rush, Jerry?
Where do we have the first right of refusal?
You approved that a month
Is
ago.
that
We
on?
did actually approve
Hello?
that.
We did.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Were you
that
here,
was a
Jerry?
letter of understanding.
Right.
It wasn't
It was-
necessarily first right of refusal, but we did have a letter of understanding.
Yeah, and
All
it
right.
gives you so many days, I think it was 60 days to match or beat his offer.
Mhm.
So what's the rush?
The goal here is to allow the seller to know that he has us on his side, in other words, as buyers, so that he knows he can pursue other, land
And
acquisitions.
that's got to be done tonight.
Probably not this second, no, it has to be done sometime.
Well, you got
And here we are.
a
No.
regular meeting for
The-
Monday, which the.
The sale is Monday.
The first.
He has to have how it is there's some property next to him that he would like to have as farmland. Okay, there is, on Monday, you put in a request on how much you'd be willing to pay for that farmland, and then that farm owner takes the top 5, and then on Wednesday, they have an auction with the top 5. So that's why,
Okay.
so now if he doesn't get that land, then we've got time again. But that is his request that, he's not gonna vote, try to buy the land unless we have some type of
So
commitment.
Laverne, isn't that on him and not asking the taxpayers to be on the hook for it?
But this is an opportunity for us to, have him get that land he would like to have.
We don't give
Well,
a shit
the
then.
taxpayers don't care if he gets it or not. The taxpayers care about the price of this, sir.
Yeah, and that price isn't
So
probably,
that has nothing to do.
that price ain't gonna change.
It should.
It-
There's one person talking just up here,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, I mean, you answered the question
So
unsatisfactorily.
$15,000 an acre on a 2-for-1 is pretty well the going price on that land next to the city limits.
Yeah, he said all along he wants a 2-for-1.
Yeah,
Well, he's getting paid a 2-for-1.
yeah.
We're giving him twice as much as what it's worth.
Well, that's what it is, next to the city limits. I've had a number of conversations. I had one probably about 1.5 miles out. They went 3-for-1. I got another one that wants over $80,000 an acre, and I got another one that wants over $60,000 an acre. We can't do that.
Okay, my final question would be before all of you, would be, in support of this, please explain to the taxpayers how this is a good deal for us. I'll part with that. Take your turn.
Mark, I'll start with that. I think we all know our costs go up every year, but if we do not continue to build on our tax base, your taxes are gonna go up. And they're never gonna go down unless you start cutting everything. So if you never build on a tax base, you never have a chance.
You're not gonna.
You're never gonna have a chance to lower. But if we have a developer that comes and says, I want an area of 10 acres to develop, what do we have? Nothing right now.
Well, again,
We got
we're
60
willing to pay
lots.
2-for-1.
We got, and another 110 ready to go. You've zoned it. Why did you guys approve that? Why did you, and I don't want to argue, I appreciate the dialogue, I really do. But you guys 3 years ago, we all said that was a good move. 110 acres sitting out there, you rezoned it, and you annexed it. If you didn't believe that was gonna happen, why did you waste your time?
So the communications I've had with some developers is, that's just not attractive for them for some reason. They just don't wanna go there right now.
Why did you do it 3 years ago?
So why
That was no cost to us then,
Why is this a better decision, Laverne?
because it's next to the city limits, that's what they want.
So is that, it's annexed.
Yeah, but they, for some reason, those developers do not want that.
It's also a flood zone.
Yeah, this is a flood zone, part of it is. Your other answer, why is this a good deal for the taxpayer? Tom, what'd you get an acre for your place down in Carroll? 30,000 an acre? Would you do this with your own money? Would you?
I don't know, Mark. What's
You
the
wouldn't.
incentives?
But you would OPM?
Well, first of all, where are we gonna expand? You said the place north of town,
Okay.
is that the
If
city's
we
or is
can
that
see-
somebody else's?
Let's agree, we've had pretty good
Okay,
run
we're
of
gonna
3
ask you a
years.
question, can I answer
Yes,
it
sir,
or
I
not?
thought you were asking me a question. Where are we gonna expand?
Where are we going to expand? And the guy north of town isn't developing it, it's not ours, we don't own it. We can't offer it up for him and just say, here, call this guy, let him hash it out.
So you wanna do it for the taxpayers?
I honestly think it would be a good development, I think it would fill up fast. I do. We've been stagnant, we've talked about this, this was our
Yeah,
number
we've got
one,
22 new builds, Tom.
this is our number one priority when we sat down for our budget, was to acquire more land. It has been for 2 years. And we haven't done it until now, the opportunity. Now, if I go back and I can quote you, you said that land will never be for sale, ever. And now it is come for sale, and it's attractive, it's right next to a golf course. Just like Collison Edition is. How fast did Collison Edition fill up?
30 years.
Okay, things take time.
Yeah.
There's only 26 houses on the market.
How much
We have a
taxpayer
company coming in
money
town.
all is it into Collison Edition, Tom?
I have no idea.
I'm just arguing
That's-
now. I don't
yeah,
wanna
I don't wanna
argue.
argue, I'm just saying, but we got another,
I'm just asking you to
Company
convince the
coming into
taxpayers
town.
why this is a great idea.
with 26 people. So if 26 families move into town, where are they living? In the only 26 houses that are available? Or in the,
Then
at
we've got
rate?
another 25 available.
Okay,
We
so,
got 26 now, another 25 available in the spring, and another 110 to be developed.
and how many houses
That's
did
an
you say
8,
got
it gives
built?
us 8 years at the current pace, Tom.
How many houses did you say got built?
22 in the last 3 years.
Last 3 years, 22.
Or under, they're still under construction some, but yeah,
Okay.
22 new permits in less than 3 years. And at that pace, you got 8 years of lots today without shoveling any more dirt.
I don't have an answer.
Why the fire sale?
I don't have an answer for you.
So I don't have an answer. I mean, I tell you, I plead with the council to reconsider doing this, but ultimately it's the council's decision. I'll support the council's decision as much as I can, but I am adamantly against
Growth.
getting in the real, what?
Adamantly against growth.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I got on this Iowa State study was somebody put on there, somebody from the public said, stop the 1970s mentality of Carroll and how it shouldn't grow. And I truly believe we've been stuck in, we're afraid to give somebody something.
Yeah,
as an
$25
incentive.
million on growth is, yeah, you go right ahead with that if you want to throw that little smart comment out there.
And Mark,
You wouldn't do it with your money.
Just one person.
Hang on.
Carolyn?
yeah, Mark, also, you mentioned Collison, and it has turned into a.
He mentioned Collison.
Or whomever, but, yeah, and I think we are looking at this as a long-term investment. We aren't looking at filling these lots in 4 or 5 years. We're thinking gradual evolution, just like down by the McFarland Clinic, Rolling Hill South to the north of that. It takes decades. And I see it as ongoing. We've got to have a vision. And we have to think long-term, big picture. At least successful people I know think that way. And we have to constantly be promoting growth. Our 2021 updated housing study said, that we need to build 56 units per year between 2020 and 2030. 56 a year. We aren't getting there in order to maintain where we peaked with our population. So I think we need to think not in terms of years, but in terms of a few decades. At least that's how I'm approaching it. It's a long-term investment, just like our homes. And so we have to build our tax base, because we do have, and we've heard it over and over from our major employers, that they need employees. And we also know from economic development specialists that your most, I guess, most of your growth comes from employers that are already here, say, Walmart, Pella, the hospital, etc. They want to grow, but people come here and we need homes at all price points. And so we have an opportunity to address, our labor shortage, provide some housing at a multitude of price points. And it will take time to evolve, but we have to start somewhere. That's where I'm coming from. And by using local option sales tax, that revenue comes from people that come to Carroll from the whole area. And maybe they'll come to Carroll and want to work here. Maybe they'll want to build a home here. But that's me. You have to start with a vision and then think long-term. That's my honest response to you, Mark.
I would like to
asked
meet,
for it, and I got it.
I would like to meet the successful people that are investing for when they're dead. It's kind of an oxymoron. Nobody, a successful person doesn't do an investment that they pay dividends when they're not even here.
Jason,
Unless you invest in your children.
I
Like-
think we all want to leave Carroll, and I know Mark is told, we want to leave Carroll better for the future generations. That's what I'm about.
Okay.
And I will tell you, and I know people are sick of my history lessons, but we have done infrastructure for developers. And I know one example that was in 1920, and that was Ida Graham Doherty. When she first gave 11 acres of Graham Park, all in a flood zone, the south part of Graham Park's all in a flood zone, to 9th Street from the highway. She said, I will only bequest this land for Graham Park if you put in all the infrastructure around Graham Park, and you look at those little houses that were built contiguous to it, it was a public-private partnership in 1920. So we have been doing it, and so there you
I
go.
assume that she would not agree with a $3.4 million price tag.
Thanks for the dialogue.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to change anybody's mind. I knew that it was closed when I came in. I wanted to make it sure that at least in the public's eye, that this is being moved forward without a plan in place. It's clear that there is not a plan for this, and that, doing it, in this fashion, I believe is not democracy's finest hour.
I'm not sure why you get there's not a plan.
There's not a plan. We don't know.
We have a plan to put housing there, so
What would be the next step, Laverne?
well, you'd have to get developers, yes.
And how does that look?
Well, let's,
RFPs,
Yeah.
put up a for sale sign, I mean,
well, he had mentioned one already.
will there be hooks in it? They gotta build a certain minimum number, will there be timelines?
Laverne, you can't answer none of my questions and then say that there's a plan. Like, you don't know the answer to any of my question. The plan is to buy this land and hopefully get it developed. That's just a plan. It's a hope and a dream. My dad used to tell me you can hope in one hand and do something in the other to see which one fills up faster. Like, I
I'd
mean,
feel a whole lot better if I at least could lay eyeballs on a plan. You know I'd pick it apart.
Yeah.
But there's just no plan.
How could we, I guess I'll state this. How can you start a plan if you don't have the land to make a plan on?
If-
That's what this is. It is the first step, as several people have said. It's the step toward development of that area.
Jerry,
For me, I'll just say the one thing that I see as an advantage of this is, it's not easy to obtain land contiguous to the city. That's just not something that's just readily available. Here's an opportunity to, obtain some land that's in what I would call an excellent area to develop. But you can't start developing, you can't get a plan without owning the land. How are we going to do that? So that would be my 2 cents on this.
You've got a first right of refusal there. And you've got 60 days, I believe it's 60 days, someone can.
Well, as I
To
said,
act on
you
it if
have
you feel
to,
like
you
you
have
need
to
to
have
do
the
that.
land in your possession in order to set up a specific plan, to initiate RFPs. How can we have an RFP on land we don't own?
Jerry, you've been in business so many years, you would know this better than anybody. Businesses thrive on having a plan. A business plan. When you go to a banker, anybody, you gotta present a business plan. You have no business plan here. How are you gonna get financing from these banks or anybody else for bond without a plan? Just on your credit rating and on the back of the taxpayer.
If this
There's
passes,
no
I expect
plan.
you'll find that there will be a plan. When this passes. If it passes, there
Passes,
will.
okay. I'm
Okay.
arguing.
Yeah, you
I'm
see what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
My point is that we cannot start with plans with something we don't have ourselves to plan on. We can't go call someone and say, well, you
I
own this
respectfully
land, so
disagree.
we've
There's
decided
just
that
two
we're going
sides
to
to
own
an
it.
equation that you can figure out, X and
That's-
Y. You should know
that's
kind
I
of
would
what X and
spend
Y are.
$3.5 million on a plan, bro.
Gotta have a plan.
For me, it's been just contiguous.
Anybody else
Land
think
is
it's
no
land?
advantage. All right,
But anyway,
does anyone,
Margaret does.
I have. I don't know if you guys remember this.
go
This
ahead and, if you wanna speak, we need for the
I'm
record.
Margaret Sidoris, and I'm from Jefferson, Iowa, but I own housing here in Carroll. 71 apartments. And as far as what this community needs, I feel that I do have some sort of experience, but I've never heard anything from anybody asking me, how full are you? Anything. And that's what's really frustrating is, you think you're the experts? How many of you own a business? Okay, a lot of you do. Do you not reference other people who are doing what you want to do and ask them, what do you feel the housing needs are? Because does anybody else own housing? Kyle does, Jason does. But that's what I'm saying. How many do you own? Do you own more than 10?
Yeah.
No, but you might, but anyway, but this is, in 21, we ran a pretty successful, I think it was 21, a pretty successful campaign to get new city council members in. And I'm gonna say tonight, I'm a little disappointed in those that I supported, and I gave a lot of time to get Kyle, JJ, and Tom in. JJ believes that there's a skewed focus as the city works to spend tax dollars on amenities and non-essential services instead of recruiting and retaining businesses and the residents to support them. She believes that we need to be utilizing existing resources, empty buildings, or in this case, empty 110 acres of ground, and utilizing the community, existing resources, empty buildings in different areas of the community, for example, to come up with cutting-edge housing options. Tom's, I'm just taking out excerpts of it. Focus on business retention and development, because we need jobs before we build housing. I don't know what the latest numbers are as far as jobs available, but I don't see it. I have probably 35 to 40% Cubans coming in from out of town. And also, Tom's, one of his was communicating in a more transparent way with the community. Tonight's meeting was not transparent. Absolutely not. Totally disappointed in all of you that you would do that. And then Kyle, fiscally responsible manner, that how the city needs to be. And that you wonder why the city is not concentrating on vacant properties in the heart of downtown before considering the corridor of commerce, which was also an overspending of our tax dollars. Young people don't return to the community after schooling. The city needs to focus on this as well. Definitely not a yes man. After tonight, I don't believe that anymore, Kyle. What we need, I think, needs to come from these people here, and you can tell, these people came last minute to come here and voice opposition. Before you do this, I think JJ needs to be here for sure, and that you give the community time to speak. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any more discussion here, so, I'm gonna call for a, ask if there is.
Who's really teeth and tellers got some?
Someone else? Okay, go ahead.
Kimberly Tiefenthaler, Director of the Carroll County Growth Partnership and Chamber. I don't want to argue. We all have our opinions. The only thing that I can speak to is what I know to be true. And when I go out and do business retention expansion visits, I do hear and I do get asked about what is the plan for housing in Carroll? And I can't really answer that question because we're always in this whirlpool of talking about it and really never getting out of the whirlpool of doing something. Do I think we need to have a huge housing development? We don't need to overbuild or have a huge anything, but we do need to step into something somewhere at some point. Do we have some things available? Yes, we do. And we can sit here and argue about it all night. And, you know, to some of your points, it's a chicken and egg thing. There are employers who want employees, but they can't find affordable housing in Carroll. No matter where they look, and I don't know where all they're looking, I can tell you that we do have a list at the chamber. If we're contacted, we always give out the list of people who have apartments and all the real estate agents. But it is a chicken and egg thing. For these employers, when it comes to jobs, do the houses bring people and jobs, or do the jobs bring the people and then the houses will follow? Nobody can answer that. That's been asked at every conference. It's talked about constantly. You can argue about it all day long, and you will not get a good answer to that because they go hand in hand. I can tell you that there are projects. I don't know if it's because we're getting far enough removed from 2020 that things are starting to break loose a little bit, but there are projects. There are people interested in Carroll and Carroll County. I have just completed my 3rd year here, and I've had more activity and more phone calls and more conversations about some very nice sized projects in Carroll and outside of Carroll in our county. There is the potential for millions of dollars to be spent and invested in our area. Will we land all these projects? No. Could we land one of them? I sure hope so, out of the number of projects that we have looking at us right now. I hope so. I pray. I'll do everything I can. But I can tell you that entry-level housing for school teachers, for nurses, for folks that are just getting out of college, and we do have people that want to return home. We are seeing that. We're not seeing it right out of college, but we are seeing it after they get a little bit older. We do have people wanting to come back home. And we have to constantly work on making Carroll the best that it can be. Carroll's a beautiful place to live. It has been and it will continue to be, but it has been a work in progress all through the years. And it takes all of us coming together, not arguing, but coming together and making things happen. I don't have all the answers. I'll never pretend to at all, but I can tell you what I hear and what I know to be true from when I go visit with employers. One that I just talked to in Carroll, we want to do an expansion in the next couple of years. You know, will there be more housing? Is there a plan for housing? I can't answer that.
So I have a question, and this is not meant to be argumentative. You feel today when you leave this room, no matter how this vote goes, you're gonna have an answer for them of what the plan is?
Well, no matter how the vote goes, I hope there's a plan to step forward somehow at some point.
But let's say the vote says yes, you're now gonna have a plan to tell them?
I do know this to be true, there are developers that are interested in Carroll, but
But you still, and that's where I guess, and that's where I'm trying to bring up my hang up is that even when you leave here and we spend $3.4 million, you're still walking out of here with no plan.
I don't wanna debate that.
Yeah,
I wanna tell you what I know to be true.
yes. And I didn't mean it to like as an argument, I just, you know.
I understand. I just wanna tell you what I know to be true, my discussions when I tell you what I know to be true, when people come in the chamber and they ask about housing as an entry-level teacher or a nurse coming to town.
Kimberly, if you go to those businesses when they're saying, what are you gonna do about housing, and say, well, the city just bought 80 acres with a promise to buy another 30 or 34 acres, that's still up to debate. What is the what is the business owner gonna say at that point, as opposed to, well, we don't have any ground and we don't have a plan at this point, but as opposed to, hey, we just got 110 acres of ground to start working for housing?
Right.
There will be a positive response from them at that point, correct?
Awesome, that's phenomenal answer. Like,
I guess, what's disheartening is that a roundtable discussion and problem solving, can't take place, because honestly, it is tiring going to conferences and hearing about other communities and how they're stepping forward and making huge strides in ways where we always seem to argue. And that's disappointing. And if you don't attend the conferences and you don't go to the meetings, and you don't know what I'm talking about.
So I do. I go to the local or the district and the state conventions. And I, like you just said, for the last 2 to 3 years, and it gets growing more and more, there's more cities getting into this, buying property for commercial or housing and getting it more and more every year. I just hear it all the time because I go to those meetings.
I have a project right now that if the city isn't involved, we won't get it. And it's a major project. And I guarantee you, when people find out that we couldn't land it, there's gonna be, it won't be good.
has it been delivered to us?
Times have changed.
Has it been delivered to us?
It's not at that point.
Oh, okay.
But times have changed. There is city involvement in development.
The last housing convention I went to in Sioux City, or a state meeting, it was a housing class. I asked a question in there, how many cities, there was about approximately 80 cities in there, how many buy land and get it ready? And it was about 50% of them. Years before that it had been less, but it's just, that's what I hear all the time when I go to these meetings.
And I'll test you
2 years ago, you had a meeting with the businesses at the chamber, and these are the 5 that were there: Pella, the hospital, New Hope, Smithfield, and Delavon. And every one of them was complaining at that point there wasn't enough housing, especially Pella. So this, it's not like this particular issue's been springing on now because of the land sale that Pete's into, but we've been talking about this for years. I mean, last year's, our planning session, it was number 3, the Merchants Park was number 1, and we did that, and the water tower, or the Northeast Water Power, pressure was 1. So it's not like we haven't been talking about this. It's just the timing of this one because of the Pete's opportunity to have a chance to buy the land. Now, if he doesn't get the land bought, then,
I guess my point is that I'm a conservative person. I don't want to overspend, I don't want to overextend ourselves, but we can't stay stuck in a whirlpool of constant talking about this and never doing anything. And at some point, we have got to come to the table, look at what other communities are doing that are successful, that's helping them to grow. How are they recruiting businesses? What is the chicken and the egg thing? We've got to be able to have these conversations if we're going to move the needle.
So I'm about government involvement. I think that that's a good thing through government involvement. Like, I think 714 is a great gold standard where government is involvement. So I think a lot of times if I say no, it's like there's not. But we've had numerous conversations that if you bring me something, you know what I mean, and I look at the numbers and it works out, I will be your biggest cheerleader to get these things through, as long as there's a plan. And that's where I'm caught up, is that there is no plan. So,
Okay,
but thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
So Manning, at the CCGP meeting, she was talking about, Don Meyer was talking about what they're doing. And they're buying the property and doing the infrastructure and that. And she tells me that all their housing that they have lately that the city's been involved in, they lose money on every one of them, but they're creating housing is what they're after.
Because you guys frustrate me though, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say. It frustrates me when you guys want to spend money in Carroll. It's Carroll's first class. We don't care what any other town is doing. And now it's like, oh, well, Manning's doing this, Pella's doing this. You talk about the chicken and the egg, man. You guys got to pick a side at some point in time. Like, you know, unless you're just a career politician that's just get to play both sides of it. You know, like and we talk about where things are going and moving. I'll tell you right now, career politicians ain't really lasting. So, I mean, you can't have, you know what I mean? You can't have it on both ways. Like, it's when we go to a Merchants Park, it's like all of a sudden, we don't care what other cities are doing. We're Carroll, we're first class. And all I asked was to get the deal signed before we did it, right? And that was the whole thing. And now, all of a sudden, it's like, well, Pella does this, and you got to draw the line in the sand at some point, you know what I mean?
Can I ask a question? Hi, I'm Sarah Culligan. I'm a mortgage loan officer at Baylor Bank. My question, so we're talking about buying on this land, but is the intention for it to be affordable housing for our first-time teachers and our people coming back to Carroll, or are we looking at price points that are in that $400,000 range? Because I would say most construction loans right now are over $400,000 for anybody doing new construction.
Sarah, how I look at this, looking at pages and pages of response from the community, Carroll and surrounding counties. If the city is never involved, you're never hitting an affordable price point. Just never going to happen.
I completely understand that, and I get that part.
And
of
I
it.
have a hard time personally, and I've heard from people in the public. How do I pay $60,000, $70,000, $90,000 for a lot and then put a home on there?
I would agree.
So,
But that's where my question is so we have this land already out by Farner. What if we were to take $1 million and put that into developing that into more affordable housing before acquiring more land? You know, why back us up into, or why put us into a rush when it's to help the buyer or the seller buy mother land, where if he's gonna cut his price point then at that point.
What land are you talking about?
I'm talking about the land that we're looking at purchasing from Simon.
Oh,
Okay.
you said out by Farner.
Right, because we already own that land out there. What are we doing to develop that
What
ourselves?
land
We don't own any other
We don't
ground.
own any.
Oh, I
We don't
apologize.
own
That's
any.
what we're talking about with the
No,
lots that we're talking about that we already
we,
own.
we
That's why my
annexed
question,
it.
I didn't know
It's-
that.
No, I apologize. I
Okay.
apologize. That's my misunderstanding on it. So I'm just coming, and I was asked to come and listen, and I'm curious to know about that stuff. And that's something I'm definitely gonna be doing a little bit more looking into as a lender. But I know most people in the construction world, you know, that are not building your $200,000 houses when they're doing new construction. They're gonna need somebody to build those houses for them so that they can afford to buy them.
Yeah, so is council willing to, with your question, is council willing to put $200,000 into a home to make it affordable?
Well, my question is,
You're looking
do
at
we have builders that are
400,000.
gonna come in and
You're
build
looking at your average
$200,000
loans
homes?
to build a home
Or
are
the builders wanna
400,000. Is council prepared to? Is this what the intervention that we're talking about, or like what you know where that's where are we at?
So one of the housing conferences I went to at Twin Lakes, Origin Homes was there, and they're building these homes in other communities all over. You can purchase a home from them, starting price of $259, and then it goes up from there.
Right, and they're building homes in our community right now.
Well,
That's-
not
But those are
Carroll,
all
but
private.
So
Yeah.
that's what those, giving them the land and putting on all the infrastructure.
some of them are purchasing the land. So
With
these
the-
are all
with the
custom.
with the infrastructure in.
These are all custom homes, so somebody's purchasing this plan and putting this home up.
But we're also putting the infrastructure. The city has the land, puts the infrastructure in, and then they build it.
Or you can sell the property.
But they're not just building it on like dirt. Our expectation is that we're putting in the infrastructure, correct?
I think everything's different. You're saying the
Well, Origin
communities?
Homes, do they go into a place that has no infrastructure?
Shovel-ready lots is only where
So
they're.
they have infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay, so so we're on the hook for all the infrastructure. And then they're giving them the land on top of it.
No, some of these are custom homes that people are building.
And then they're buying them?
So I know, so like the housing conference I was at, Glidden had 2, Templeton had 2, Manning I think had 5, Gallery had 3 or 4.
So I guess my question, Origin Home comes in, buys the lot,
No.
From what I'm aware, those are all private sales.
Those are all private sales.
They're
Origin don't buy
privately
land.
contracted individuals. So my question would be is like, can we get them to come in and do, again, that affordable housing, and is the city going to help?
That's a
Origin
different
typically not doing
discussion.
that, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, they don't buy the land.
They don't build the house, they don't pay for the houses up front either. They'll finance them, but they aren't.
So we gotta give them the land and the infrastructure needs to be in, and then they'll just build the house.
We don't have to give them the land, we can decide that at a different time.
But for them to come,
Somebody owns the land. So if somebody wants to develop in this land, then we'll sell them the land possibly. And then Origin will build the home.
oh, so, okay.
It depends on which developer you're talking about. Now, are we talking to or am I talking to developers that are building senior living housing? Yes. Could it be more workforce housing? Yes. Could it be single-family homes where we move from older homes to newer homes? Yes. The answer is yes to all of those questions. It's a matter of having the space to put them. And quite frankly, I'm trying to work on all of those things.
All right, that was my question is, what kind of housing are we expecting to put out here? Because we mentioned the golf courses.
The answer is yes.
Everything is, we're looking at everybody.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Which goes back to the point, there's no plan. No plan. And at $30,000 an acre, that just became
Call for
less
a vote.
affordable. Unless they,
Let's just go, come on.
unless they hand it on to the taxpayer. Is this being
Call
taped?
for a vote.
My last question, is this being taped?
Yes,
Well, it
Everything's-
is, so
right.
the public will get a chance to view this on YouTube?
yes.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Well, we came here tonight to see if we would find a motion of approval of the resolution for the offer to buy real estate and acceptance, non-residential, to purchase 80.5068 acres for $2,414,075 from Peter Simons, John Simons, and KMC Farm Limited. That's what we came here for. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second,
All right, Laverne made the motion and Carolyn seconded the motion. A roll call vote, please.
Atherton,
No,
Bauer,
Yes.
Bornero,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Seaman.
yes.
Motion's approved.
That's it.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Bauer,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Atherton.
Yes.
Bornero, Dirk.
Yes.
We are adjourned.